Yes, welcome back. This is F a Rap Critic. I'm your boy Malik 16, and no, for the most part, we don't see you, but you see us. Had to flip it in reverse. If you didn't catch up and pick up on that reference, then you clearly need to go back and watch episode 1 of the review of the album that we're talking about today. And while you're at it, take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. And yeah, this is part 2 of our breakdown and analysis of the classic album, which is now 25 years old. We're talking about none other than Things Fall Apart by The Roots, 1999 album. This is category 2, where we go over the rap performance on said album. And I'm not going to waste your time. We're going to jump right into it. The first dimension in category 1 that we go over is Dimension 1, personality and charisma. Okay, we're still talking about the version of The Roots, which was widely understood to be two frontmen rapping, and that's going to be Black Thought and Malik B. Here we have a much more prominent presence of Dice Raw as extended fan member. Same with Scratch and Rozelle, but they're not adding lyrical vocals, they're adding sound effect vocals. So they're part of the production process, not necessarily a part of the rap contingent, right? So if we just break it down to the two main MCs, Black Thought and Malik B, the personality presented here by each of them, they still manage to have individualized presence on the mic. It seems to be more pronounced than ever, really, because there's not as many tracks, as I pointed out in the first video, with them together doing any volleying back and forth, feeding off each other. It's really like your part, my part. Malik B leads one or two hooks on the album, and that's kind of it, with the exception, of course, of his solo where he's doing the hook. But Step Into the Realm is him and Black Thought in unison, mostly his vocals leading. 100% Dundee is the closest you get to any back and forth pairing and parrying, with this more noticeable distance between them. As subtle as it is, you get to understand that Malik B really is about that inner struggle with his spirituality and his street life sensibilities, because he always finds a way to circle back to that within his lyrics. It's this tug of war between aggressive sentiments of what he can do, what he's capable of doing, what he might do, and the pullback, the restraint that he's exercising because he answers to a higher power. Whereas Black Thought seems to be on full-on assault, but his restraint is that he relegates his assault to other rappers. Black Thought doesn't dabble in the street territory on this album, and so a lot of his time and focus is placed on that. But because of those two natures, you see one is more inward, one is more outward. Similar to the way I had a difficult time describing what it is about the Clips when we reviewed their album. It's the same struggle pinpointing exactly what it is that makes it feel like there's personality lacking from the Roots. When you listen to this album as a body of work, you understand that they're nuanced. They don't sound like anyone else, and they definitely have carved out a lane. But personality and charisma is that element that doesn't have to raise a question mark of, do you walk away remembering any particular thing about a track or a song or the album itself besides the feeling of the album, right? We talked about the dark looming feeling, the book-ended feeling, the idea of things falling apart. But in between that, it's the same reason why when Common comes on Act 2, Love of My Life, it becomes his song. There's something about the way he puts inflection, and it's weird as someone who does this regularly and gives you this breakdown for each album on his channel, to not be able to really describe what it is that Black Thought is lacking, because Black Thought has tenacity and he has mellow modes, he has modality, but the personality just kind of slips in between somewhere. And maybe because the rap sounds so polished that it's like, oh, you're not feeling any emotion in between because it's an attack. Every rap sounds like an attack. You listen to something like Without a Doubt, and do you remember anything from it enough to be like, oh yeah, I felt that? Closest you get to something that would evoke emotion is You Got Me, and even that is a very steady narrative. It's what he's saying, it's how he's saying it. Black Thought is almost masterful at not giving you him, but giving you the message that he wants to convey, which is an Achilles heel of his that he's acknowledged over time, which is why he's branched out and done more experimental things. He's, honed his singing chops and gotten more free with what he does on this mic. Because, I mean, if anyone's read his autobiography, The Upcycled Self, then there's a lot there to show. His story is one of the wildest stories among a lot of hip-hop artists. We all come with something similar to comedians, and so it's just very interesting that you don't get to see that through what Black Thought does on the mic. And with Malik B, he's wearing his inner conflict. He's more of an open book, but his style is also so calm and casual that that's it. There's no mystique to it. It's like, oh, okay. So to put it plainly, Dice Raw comes on and there's so much more of a bigger personality in every verse. Every time he appears, you get this feeling of who Carl Jenkins is. It's like, maybe it's because he's projecting big, but there's something there. I don't know if it's charismatic, but it's more in your face. It allows the guests to shine just that much brighter, because it's like, oh, they're here. There's something to balance against this, and it makes more sense now. But I would love to hear what you all think about the personality showcased on this album, the charismatic elements, if any, something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. That takes us to Dimension 2, the believability or suspension of disbelief. Okay, just because this is based off a fictional novel does not mean that thematically you are being asked to suspend your disbelief, because you're not being taken anywhere fictional. You're being taken into the very real world of Philadelphia, the very real world of tour life and smashing the mic and loving the squash phony competition. The Roots are big on, standing against the fake stuff in a way where they are noble soldiers against it. So it's not a tirade against fakeness, it's just the dominant message. It's not like they're not here to save hip-hop, they're just here to call it out, call out the fakeness and stand against it. Again, Malik B brings a lot of street sensibilities, and there's moments where Black Thought alludes to that. Like there's a line on Step Into the Realm where Black Thought says, odds are crevices, life like a double negative, Philly criminal, I rhyme, my dirt, Tariq already did, building this, fifth foundation in the wilderness, thoughtless, trespassing into thought's fortress. So it's like, just for that second, he lets you know, okay, I've got that too, but I'm more focused on this rhyme construct, this rhyme dynasty that's being built. I want my name to be remembered for how I destroy these mics, because I don't have to prove anything for street cred. I've already got that. I've got my stripes. Where Malik B differs, because he's constantly reminding you of the stripes, and it's more in a threatening posture. Like, please don't make me have to add another stripe. Don't make me bring these out. So he'll say lines like, if there's a point in life when I cannot afford, then I have to get shiced and I deal in fraud. Now back to the topic of the rap philosopher with more drama than a soap opera, who stops the propaganda, the hot block commander, putting a halt to all the back talk and slander. Like, I will if I get pushed to that limit, which they're both saying. But there's a line on the track that got left off, Quicksand Millennium, where he's like, so what am I, the good guy? I cock, think not? There's more of that. But that's the heights of this idea of how much do you need to believe them. It's not a suspension of disbelief album, because they remind you that that's what they're devoted to do it, and they prove it. They are spitting MC type of bars for the most part. There's not any phantasmagoric stuff going on. There's not any over the top, no superhero references, no out of this world feats, no luxury lifestyle rap. They're not macabre. They're not talking about beating people, ripping off body parts. It's just, I will damage your crew type lines. So this shouldn't be a hard one for most of you, but as always, it's up to you to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. That takes us to dimension 3, the delivery and use of voice. Okay, we got Philly accents here. You will hear it in the way that certain words are pronounced and slanted. And then Malik B's voice varies from Black Thought in, again, another subtle way that's harder to describe. Malik B has, they sound like they're related, but, brothers from another. Malik B is calmer with just a little touch of gruff to his voice, while Black Thought is smoother with a little bit of rasp to his voice and more force because he's projecting more. You think of a track like Step Into the Realm, and again, Malik is just coming in like kind of talking to you or chanting, walk across this world of deception, and Black Thought comes in before the beat even drops, and he's like, I'm from the valley of the heavy heads. Like he's ready to attack, where Malik B is like, I'm attacking. That's the biggest difference. You'll see it in the intro songs, just in the way that Black Thought chooses to approach Table of Contents. One, like it's this audio bum rush, and Malik B comes in like, maybe I will, maybe I won't, let me ponder on it. This is just a beat to ponder on. And his lyrics reflect that. He says more things in passive language of what he might do, or maybes. There's a lot more maybes, and Black Thought talks more in absolutes, like I'm definitely coming, certified. It's the legendary Roots crew. Here, more than ever, they sound more bouncy, and there's more of a reliance on the staccato bounce and the choppy chanting, right? So you hear Black Thought do it. Hey, you listen and stop what you doing and set it in motion. It's the next movement. There's a lot of songs on this album where you will hear that kind of cadence. I think about, you don't see us, but we see you. You stop going to sleep, get on your P's and Q's, and even the way Black Thought chooses to approach his verse on that song. It's the most different verse you hear from Black Thought in the album, but that is choppy and chanty in nature. Malik B, he's coming with melodic bounces. So like I mentioned, what he did on Step Into the Realm. On the table that belongs in the war, with a mic and a cord, to hold your head like a sword. Interesting approach, right? He's doing it, but that's a version of a chant. And then the way he comes in on 100% Dundee, I'm illa tan not ready to go, and that's, he keeps that flow for that verse. Same thing with Adrenaline. I know that was the thing that everybody was doing to maintain the same flow, but there's something in the way that they're delivering it where it doesn't have as many ups and downs. It doesn't do its natural peaks and valleys, and so it just sounds like ninja star rap. I'm throwing them, just darts, instead of something that might have curvature to it. It's straight at you, and that's how they both approach the mic on this album. There's a mechanical element to it with a human voice. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. There's not a mechanical sound. It's not a mechanical style at all, but it's a mechanical element to it because it's a decided rhythm. I don't think you get Black Thought in his full form except for on those beats that sound like what he called rhyme ready. So nothing new. he sounds the most at ease and the most relaxed and the most fluid. Same thing with Step Into the Realm. He gets to play with it a lot more, and 100% Dundee. He's all over. He's killing it. So much so that he comes back for another verse. That's how you know he's feeling it. And to an extent, Dynamite. He's free. He's free on that. He's bouncing all over it. I mean, if someone could describe it a little better, or use the right language to encapsulate and articulate what I'm trying to say about that, there's not a freeness there. They're kind of constricted by the decided rhythms that they are going on. Adrenaline being a clear example of that, as deliberate as it was, to the point where even Beanie sounded kind of narrowed down with his thing. On the palm with them. You don't get to really experience how creative beings could be as we came to know him, because that verse required everybody to kind of rap the way they rap. Dice Raw, again, the freest on that song. But this is still in top form. This is not whack. It's just, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just something that is noticeable when we're talking about delivery. So one of the special aspects of Black Thought's vocal presence is that he has one of those hip-hop voices that go great with so many other voices. And so when you have features, it really does create this great contrast. So when you get with a Mos Def, the reason that pairing works so well on Double Trouble is because, man, it's a combination that got unlocked. It's a combination that hadn't been heard before. They both bring a different kind of rasp. Black Thought being a controlled rasp, and Mos having a muted rasp that he projects loudly, if that makes sense. Same thing with Black Thought and Dice Raw. Black Thought and Dice Raw, it's a louder person with a more controlled person, and so on and so forth. You could say the same thing with Black Thought and Eve. We needed the softness of her voice to break up that monotonous narration tone that he chose on there. Even though that's his version of softening up and playing with his voice, it still just sounded like even toned storytelling voice. Nothing dynamic. You don't feel when he's like, people caught in love like whirlwinds, you don't necessarily feel the whirlwind in his recitation of it. But even Eve's part, because he wrote Eve's part, she's just saying another lonely night. It doesn't sound like it's from the gut. It's so it's just very interesting. But it worked well because you needed her softness to really bring home the idea that this was a relationship song. So his voice just goes so well with so many other rappers, and the best instance of that is going to be on Dynamite, because most of us do not know who Rahani or Elo is, at least on a national level, and it doesn't matter because they sound so dynamically contrasted that it's like, okay, I'm gonna keep rocking. The beat works, their voices work, and they're keeping up with each other flow wise. And again, you have a built-in partner for that contrast in Malik B, and their voices always sound classically good together. And so all these things are something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats when you're thinking about the delivery and use of voice on this album. That takes us to Dimension 4, the flow. All right. What can we say about the flow that has not already been said? These guys are flow masters. Black Thought is flow. and Table of Contents proves that. It's not a definitive flow because it's almost in the vein of freestyle flow, and he is the other instrument to that drum and bass, and that's all you need. You just those cymbals clashing, and he's just, check it out. You're now attuned to the sound of the R to the double O to the TS, and all the words connect and go somewhere, even when he's doing the choppy. He's using all the devices at his disposal. He's just not allowing enough emotion and personality to come fill it out. but he definitely is using different flows all through this album. So we talk about the choppiness on Next Movement. He simplifies it, he spaces it out more. He even does allusions to old school raps, right? When he breaks into the Big Daddy Kane reference and goes, you got the groove, MCs freeze, and then goes back. It's a lot more stretched out words on there. Movement, I get it now. It's almost scat rap on that track, whereas 100% Dundee, he is completely free in MC mode, right? On these 73 keys, the ivory and ebony, I swear solemnly that I forever rock steadily. People want to know where Malik, he right next to me. And then there's tracks where he decides to be more melody driven. So the whole You Got Me is melody driven, right? She said she loved my show in Paris, said Elise Maman. Double Trouble. Me and her, Valentine's in it, out of a league. We go back like names and Tahitian treat. He's doing everything that you want a rapper to do flow wise. Malik B right behind him with simple change ups. Like I mentioned, what he does on Step Into the Realm. He's not doing a flow like that again. On Adrenaline and 100% Dundee, he's rapping faster. He's going faster than anywhere else on the album. Because he's switching it up. Whereas on You Don't See Us, it's more comfortable. He's back to his bounce. He's not keeping up with Black Thought so much on this album. That's part of creating the distinction and the distance. It's more about the individuality on this album. It's almost like one brother's preparing to go to college and the other's not. And so you're getting those flow patterns, and you could tell Dice Raw being in the fold. This is him also proving why he's in the fold. So he plays with his delivery and his flow. I'm thinking about on You Don't See Us after Black Thought comes in with his unorthodox pattern. Is they messing it, you know. Dice Raw comes back in his verse and he's like, I seen you on the nolly while you pussyfooting folly. Wanna get the daddy. He gets into his scat bag. Whereas when he's more kind of just letting loose on Nothing New, he's just going. Now come on, you just the army ant. I'm a giant. That's his raw form. It's the Dice Raw. But yeah, flows abound all throughout this album, and they could be appreciated individually for each shape they take on the different songs. Dynamite is this curling of verses around each other, leading in seamlessly. It's a back and forth style that we haven't heard so much because it really is wrapped around that beat. And you'll get a lot of that. Even on the intro on Table of Contents, where Black Thought does that part and he says, my vocal just a knuckle, that sucker punched the drum. Now, whether he did that to match the way that the pattern was already in the beat, or the beat did that to match the way he said that. And so he'll do that on Dynamite, where he's like, yo, tro, do, send. It's a marriage. It's understanding where the music lands. You will never accuse Black Thought of being off beat. He lives in the beat, right? Malik B, another not going off beat, but not as focused on as many syllables within a verse. It's more about speed or slow contemplation. And so all those things are something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. That takes us to Dimension 5, the wordplay and bar intent. Okay, so something that could be said about Black Thought throughout time is he is from a school of MCing where rapping about MCing still got reaction. And it's 1999 at this point, and part of the reason why the album is called Things Fall Apart is because Questlove says that, you know, Black Thought was still from this perspective and mind state, while the game was caring less and less about that on a mainstream level. It's starting to, you know, turn into a super focus on how much materialism can be accumulated by one person. And the further that grew, it seemed like Black Thought grew further in his mission to plant the flag that this MCing matters. So there's a lot of rapping about rap stuff on this album, and what that does, it doesn't leave a lot of room for clever rhetorical devices and stuff. That's not the mission here. So on table of contents, from the get-go, from Jump Street, he's gonna say simple things like, the mic cord is an extension of my intestine. Cool, that's imagery. But then he's gonna say, delicate MC slicing my delicatessen. It's just playing with the same vowel and consonant sounds. It's not an entendre. It doesn't really, have any meaning beyond that. It's just, I'm going to use deli as a 4-letter beginning for 2 different words. And that's where it begins and ends. My mind state is that of the SP connection, South Philly. Pincy's a part of me, South Philly throughout my arteries. The clever line comes in that my vocal is a knuckle that sucker punched the drum. Again, that's a metaphor, that's imagery, but that is pretty much the lane where Black Thought lives throughout this album. He's not into a lot of similes, a lot of any of that layered stuff. No schemes here. That's not what he's about on here. It's rapping about ripping the mic, and he might quite literally say, I rip mics. and that was fine because we were focused on the whole package, the flow and how he's bringing it. There's a big emphasis on vocabulary. These are college guys, maybe not college graduates, but college students. And so, Malik B is going to say on his table of contents, vandalize your terrain, go against the grain, invade your brain with collision, causing division, sweep your sector, leaving you niggas for stool pigeons. Look at all the PSAT words in there. Yeah, the wordplay, whacking MC for 10,000 because I'm for hire. That's how he ends his verse. It's not super witty, it's a nice, cool way to end a verse. That's what you're getting there. Black Thought's gonna say things like, my zodiac sign reads caution. That's not a deep line. Me and Black Thought are the same sign. I'm a Libra. Our sign is literally the scales. Nothing about the scales jump out to you in an obvious way to say caution. It means balance, weigh things out, but it's not caution. When we think caution, you think yellow tape, you think a stop sign, you think something red, orange. It's just ways to make things rhymes. I chop rappers up like chicken Szechuan. Pretty literal. And the guest on here who would normally do some stuff like Beans or Most do pretty straightforward rap too, because that's just what their features called for. Eve doesn't even get a chance to do any of her, but Eve is not that kind of rapper. Eve is another straight, simplistic, say it like it is. Yeah, not a lot of wordplay, but bar intent. The intent is to flex how much they are MCs and how much they are smashing the competition. Something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. Please tell me in the comments if you picked up on any other forms of wordplay that I may have not mentioned, but it's here and there. It's very sparse. All right. Dimension 6, on that same note, the overall quotability, punchlines or poetic wisdom. As mentioned, punchlines are not going to be an area of emphasis here. That's not where they're coming from. Any punchlines here are very few and far between, damn near accidental, because they are not punchline rappers. Malik B might be more prone to it than Black Thought because he's more inclined to do slick talk. Dice Raw, of course, will bring punchlines in where he's like, I'll just backslap you like Shaq did Oster Tag, and even his imagery is different. Tripping over Legos, running up the stairs. Poetic wisdom is going to come in the same spaces where the content is going to come, and I mentioned this in video 1 how it's interspersed here and there with the braggadocio, and Malik B usually comes from a Philadelphian rooted space of thinking and in a street. Like he's talking about, he even goes to mentioning spoons for ice picks and weaponry that he could use that it's like jail references, whereas Black Thought talks about global things, just things going on. Even his decision to mention, doing a show in Paris on You Got Me, and that he's on tour and then he's leaving. It's like, I'm not just Philadelphia, I'm Philadelphia plus the world. And Malik B is more like Philadelphia against the world, where he can say some really abrasive stuff. And I've seen some of the reviews of the album at the time, people calling Malik B too abrasive. I would argue that maybe it's Dice Raw on this album who is the most abrasive one, but Malik B might have a line like, might make this chick my wife, I'm talking to this B like, and it's like, what was that whole sequence about? But this is also the same man that'll tell you, instead of trying to take you under, I just make you wonder. I still fast, makes a lot and pays a cot. I didn't make Hodge yet, but that's my next project. Living two lives, one eternal, one with true lies. Keeping up hope, knowing his answer to my do-eyes. Like, that is Malik B. Rest in peace. It would have been amazing to have that man on the show, because the duality is very present there. We don't get to see Black Thought's duality until later albums, where he opens that chapter up a little bit more. But those are where you're getting those gems of poetic wisdom. I mentioned Black Thought saying, black rain falling from the sky looks strange. Imagery like that paints a picture of the imagery that he created on Love of My Life. And that's pretty much the extent of it. The quotability, again, I think because of that rapid fire style, I think because of the focus on smashing other MCs and that recitation factor, I don't know how many people leave this album quoting this album, but as a Roots fan, I still, memorize a nice portion of this album. That's strictly because I had the advantage of being like a super fan. These guys influenced me as a rapper. I'm the exception, not the rule. Something for you to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. Takes us to dimension 7, the concepts. All right. I've seen it written that You Don't See Us is supposed to be Orwellian or like a commentary on Big Brother, but it only seems like Black Thought's small verse has any reference to an idea of, black people needing to wake up and be aware and be more woke. Everything else is more braggadocio. People might be reading too deep into the hook. You don't see us, but we see you. It just means more like, it's more of a statement of, we got the advantage on you, we got the drop on you. Act 2, Love of My Life, is the most conceptual rap song on here because it is building upon and continuing this conceit, this long metaphor started by Common of talking to hip hop embodied as a woman. Black Thought keeps it very simple and straight and second person. It was all for you, from the door for you. This is all the stuff that I did for you. Thank you, hip hop, you're the love of my life. No mystery there, no need to, rewind it and scratch your head. Common comes and does his third person narrative. Let me tell you this story about her. Boom. And that's about it. There's a lot of conceptual song construction here. The fact that 100% Dundee is built all around Rozelle creating the main beat is musical brilliance, but from a rap performance and rap writing, Love of My Life is where it goes. That's it. Whether that's strong enough for you or whether it's too derivative and it's like, it's been done before, it's a cheat. Something for you to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. That takes us to the content dimensions. We'll start with dimension 8, the externalized content. Listening to their squad and listen to girlfriends. That's exactly the point where their whole world ends, lies come in. That's where the drama begins. She like, boom, boom. So that's a commentary on relationships, even though it started out as a song between just one person to another person. You got me. In between, commentary here and there, but not enough to make it feel like, ooh, there's all this externalized content. That last spoken word piece is super heavy. super heavy, creates the emotion, all the emotion lacking from the verses on the rapper's end comes from the spoken word piece from Ursula Rucker, which takes us to Dimension 9. That is the internalized content. How much do Malik B and Black Thought give you of themselves? Black Thought approaches Act 2, Love of My Life, as if he is talking about his struggle to get on. I remember eyes a little snot nose, rocking Gazelle, God goes, and eyes I close. Talking about his journey to become an MC. That's as vulnerable as it gets on Black Thought's part. I ain't on some more, I'm a celebrity, I deal with the real, so if it's artificial, let it be. Okay. Here and there you get his ideas, his statements on his beliefs and his outlook and his perspective on the world, but not expository stuff. Malik B, you're getting that because he's letting you know what he hasn't done yet as a Muslim, what he would like to do, what he hasn't done yet on the streets, what he could do, what he has done. He's alluding to it even if he's not going into full description. And on songs like The Spark, you really get this window into his world because it's all about that. He's just, this is his credo on that song. And that's really it. This is not the album for that. And so it's up to you if you consider those things strengths, weaknesses, something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5. Heartbeats for both Dimension 8 and Dimension 9 takes us to the final dimension, Dimension 10. Storytelling, Return to Innocence Lost, full out story, no ifs, ands, buts about it. You got me. Not all the way a story. There are parts of it told in story form, parts of it told in conversation form, and that's about it. Same thing with Act 2, Love of My Life. There's parts of it told in story form, parts of it that is just commentary. And that's that. Those are your stories on the album. You can argue that any one of those are strong enough that it fills the story element for a classic album, or collectively they all unite to make one, the equivalent of one classic story. All of that is something to consider on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats. And on that note, I leave you with the Category 2 review and breakdown of the classic 1999 album Things Fall Apart by The Roots, their third or fourth album, depending on where you're counting from. And if you've never heard it, there are deluxe versions and releases out there where you could hear dope additional songs that, in my opinion, should have made this album, like What You Want, The Lesson Part 3, and my favorite, Quicksand Millennium. Shout out to the whole Roots crew, and rest in peace to my namesake, Malik B. And on that note, catch us next time on another episode. Y'all know what it is. F a Rap Critic. Talk about it while I live it. Word to meth.